Welcome into the Tar Heel Herald. Today I want to talk about the possibility of UNC becoming the Clemson of the Coastal. How can they do that? I mean, let's look at the history of Clemson, and I think you'll see some similarities, except a few. I think it's getting there quicker for UNC football. But the reason being is because there's an easier path. Right now, the ACC, even with the ACC even kind of trending upwards right now, it's still at a pretty bad point in its lifetime. Clemson had to go through Florida State before it can become the ACC domination it is today. And then, of course, Florida State fell off. Miami still hasn't came back. And, I mean, who it really else was? I mean, I know Virginia Tech has some history, and everyone in the ACC has history of being decent. But after Florida State dropped off, Clemson was the only dominant team, and luckily they're a, college football playoff team. Otherwise, the ACC would be looking probably similar to the Pac-12. In my opinion, we would probably be worse than the Pac-12, to be honest, because if you have the next best team, who is the next best team in the ACC consistently? If you got the Pac-12, you at least got Oregon and USC consistent. I mean, I guess Washington. But anyways, so if you look back at Clemson's rise, it started in 2008 with Dabo getting interim coach, and then it took him after 2009 a few years before they became a consistent 9-10 win team. Then eventually, after getting over the hump of Florida State, they just started winning constantly, and they haven't lost the ACC championship since. I'm pretty sure it's been since 2015. So I'm going to say the Clemson of, they're obviously the Clemson of the Atlantic, but can the UNC be the Clemson of the Coastal? And how hard would that be at the time? I don't think it would be that hard. If Miami finally shows that they're relevant again, and this isn't a Texas, we're back, no we're not type situation, then Miami may give us some trouble and becoming that. And by all means, I'm not saying I want Miami to be trash, because no one wants an easy path to a championship game, the CFP. I mean, because no one wants to be just sliding through and then get humiliated on national television in front of millions and millions of people. So I don't want to have this ACC schedule constantly where it's so easy that when we finally do get to the ACC championship game or the college football playoffs, whatever, we're not getting absolutely demolished by Clemson. So, and everyone could say, well, you were within 1 point 1 year. Yeah, Clemson in postseason versus regular season is a whole different machine. So let's not even attempt to say that 20-21 game was anything foreshadowing of the future. It's not. It was a one-time. We honestly even I think we were the Kickstarter for that team that year. I mean, Trevor Lawrence was supposed to be Heisman. He dropped off immediately in the Heisman race after the first 3 games. Then they played us, and he just became a machine and got him all the way back to the national championship again. So when you say, when you look at the possibility of becoming the dominant team in the Coastal, if you look at all the teams in the Coastal, obviously you got to play the other teams as well on the other side sometimes. But if you're escaping Clemson, then you basically have an easy schedule. And, of course, we escaped Clemson, at least this year. But what I want to say is in the Coastal, you have Georgia Tech, Virginia, Miami, Duke, and Pitt. And if you remember, there was a time where we all cycled going to the ACC championship. All 7 of us, somehow Georgia Tech did it one year. I don't know how. But somehow all 7 of us all differently got in one of the 7 years. And that just shows you how the Coastal just has been inconsistent. And most of these teams, that's exactly what they are. If you just look at their history, at least within the last decade, the history of these teams is just... Pitt is a 7 to 9 win team every year almost, unless they're down, which is rare. Pat Narduzzi and his defense is great. They just can't produce offense, and they're just decent every year. Duke, hit or miss. Cutcliffe, you thought he was going to change the program around to be a consistently 8-win team, but I guess not. Miami, we'll still have to see what Miami can do. Obviously, Miami's probably going to be our future competition in constantly trying to fight for the Coastal Division Championship. Besides, maybe every once in a while, you're going to have a Virginia Tech, a Pitt, a Virginia, and maybe even Georgia Tech finally, with Jeff Collins, finally gets that Atlanta vibe going and getting Georgia Tech back to where they used to be, which is surprising to a lot of people that Georgia Tech used to be something of great. But, I mean, Virginia Tech was this too at one point with Beamer. I mean, there was a time, I can't remember what year, but I know they were in the national championship one year, if I'm not mistaken. They didn't win, but they were in the national championship. As with the Beamer back in I think it was the 80s, if I'm not mistaken. But so if these teams constantly just be decent and don't stick with North Carolina, and Miami doesn't take that next step up that the prevalent Miami were known for back in the 90s, then I honestly see it. I really do see a path to where UNC is gonna just be constantly getting into the ACC championship with Clemson. Now, that's of course saying that we continue our path in the trajectory upward. This is only year 2, and we still haven't even technically got to the ACC championship in the first place. So even though we were robbed of it this year from Notre Dame, but and they're never going to come to the ACC, so basically we just got stripped of an ACC championship berth for a team who will never join. I think they will never join. They just don't need it. They don't need us. They don't need to be in a conference. Until there is the NCAA saying, hey, they have to join, it's not going to happen. So the only people I really say that gives us, if we continue our upward trajectory, the only teams that are going to give us some problems are Miami, Pitt, and then the occasional Virginia Tech, Virginia. But obviously we play NC State every year. So Duke and NC State are rivalries, even though we hope to get it to the point where it's not even a rivalry, unless they step up. But until they step up, hopefully we can disintegrate this notion of the fact that it's a rivalry, because we've already started to prove that the rivalry is heavily leaning in our favor, at least in the football side. But with everything being said, I think there's a very high chance that we could become the dominant one on the Coastal. And whether or not we're obviously as good as Clemson, my point is just to say that we will be constantly in the ACC championship in years to come. Maybe not a streak like Clemson where it's 5 in a row. Now, they're winning all 5 in a row, but maybe not going to the ACC championship 5 years in a row, but I can see us getting there a very, very high percentage compared to most teams. So with that being said, that'll be it for me. Thanks for joining in to the Tar Heel Herald.